is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. Now, I really appreciate all of you making me a part of your day again. And we finally reached 160 subscribers on YouTube. I set the bar at 150 recently to see if we can get to 150, and you guys all exceeded my expectations. And I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be more blessed. And we're really growing something over here. And, I'm just very grateful, very blessed for all of you and the support for the channel. It's been, it's been a fun ride so far, and I really can't wait to see where this goes in the future. I'm really looking forward to seeing how much this takes off in the months and years to come. It's been an awesome time, releasing content to you guys, and I really appreciate all the support, all the likes, all the comments, and recently, because of everything that I posted last week about Brock Purdy, I've been getting some big time hate. And I'm going to defend it a little bit today, slightly. We're going to talk a little bit about what I had to say last week about Brock Purdy and the 49ers, but, that's neither here nor there. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and personally, I don't care. I really don't care what anybody has said to me lately about my opinion on that, because it's pretty split down the middle. There are plenty of people coming out and bashing me for my opinion on Brock Purdy, but there are plenty of people defending me and how I portrayed Brock Purdy as it comes to the ranking of all quarterbacks in the NFL in general and as a whole. So before we get into today's episode, like always, I'm a Bucked Up ambassador, so use promo code SHOW32, get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout orders at buckedup.com. So we're going to get started today, and I talked a little bit about this before we get into this, last week I did post an episode again about mental health and really the struggles of, everybody's mental health. And I know June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and, there's a lot of things that I did not say that I, can touch up on. And I plan on doing that for my last episode of June, which will probably be next week. I will touch up more on that aspect of it. I know I mentioned it in the beginning, but a lot of the things I mentioned, that has to deal with the whole broad circle of dealing with mental health issues such as depression and anxiety and overthinking. All of those feelings and emotions, I talked about all those in the broad spectrum of what mental health really is all about. And next week, I'll dive into more about the men's mental health aspect of it because, it's, a lot of that stuff needs to be said. A lot of that stuff that happens to men on a daily basis, the way we think, the way we feel, a lot of it doesn't get talked about. And next week, you can be sure that I'm going to post about that. So you have a little bit of a sneak peek for next week. That's what I'll be talking about. So, I really appreciate all the support for that episode. A lot of people, really love those. It's what I built my channel on to start off. And like I said, I know I'm transitioning into something a little different, but at the same time, I'll always make time to, make content that is, beholden to my roots in a sense, where, you got to remember where you started and why you started something in the first place. So that's really why, I mentioned before that talking about certain aspects of life for so long will only prolong your growth and your healing process. That's why I choose not to talk so much about everything that I went through in my past. Now it's out there. Everybody knows what I've been through and, the life struggles that I've had already. But, I look to a brighter future because, no matter how bad things get, it always gets better. It may not happen in the timely manner that we all want it to be, but it does happen eventually. And for me, looking at myself in the mirror, it's living proof of everything that God has done in my life and all the work and effort that I put into it and just trusting in him that I could overcome everything. So next week, That's what we'll be talking about the majority of the time, all the issues that men face on a daily basis when it comes to that aspect of mental health. So, be sure to stay tuned for next week. That'll be a fun episode, and I really look forward to doing that one. So today, let's talk a little bit about what I posted last week when it comes to the 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy. I ended up having Brock Purdy ranked as the 16th best quarterback in the NFL. Middle of the pack, nothing special, just an average quarterback, which I think he is. And I have been scrutinized over the past week. I've been called high. I've been called this, that, and the other for what I said about Brock Purdy. And, I get it. His first 2 seasons in the NFL, back-to-back NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. Now, he didn't win the Super Bowl, but he still got there. But that's exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo did when he played for the Niners a couple years ago. And we all saw how Jimmy Garoppolo's career turned out. But when it comes to Brock Purdy, I talked about this before, you need special at quarterback. There's a reason that the Bradys of the world have so many Super Bowls. There's a reason Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowl rings. There's a reason Patrick Mahomes, early on in his career, is already going to make strides to rival Brady when it comes to total Super Bowl wins for one franchise and as a quarterback as a whole. Special wins Super Bowls. Every now and then you get a glimmer of hope from some other quarterback who's just average or okay or pretty good or just got on a hot streak. And there's no better example than that than Nick Foles from, I believe, 2017 I think it was 2017, might have been 17, 18, either way. When Nick Foles went into the Super Bowl and outdueled Brady, we were all shocked. I had no expectations that the Eagles would have went into that Super Bowl and beat Tom Brady. Really had no clue that Nick Foles could have pulled any amount of magic out of his rear end to make that historic playoff run. But it happens every now and then. It was possible that Brock Purdy could have done the same thing this past year, but it wasn't meant to be. And my whole argument for going against Brock Purdy, I never said he was a bad quarterback. I never said he was ass like Will Levis. I never said he was overrated like Dak Prescott. Now, maybe he's a little overrated because that's the team that surrounds him. He's a good quarterback, but I do think he's middle of the pack. I don't think he's that special. When you look at the entire 49ers roster, built from the ground up, the front office, the coaching staff, they did a fantastic job at developing their players and their scheming and their offense and defense as a whole. Really, the whole team built from the ground up with player personnel, the coaching staff, the schemes, it all fits. 9 times out of 10, I don't care really who it is. You could put anybody behind center in the 49ers offense, and they're going to look like a Pro Bowler. Now, Trey Lance, obviously he was overrated, and we get all that. He was a first-round, I believe it was a first-round pick. Either way, the 49ers reached on him. It was a whiff. We get that. It happens in the NFL. But I don't think Brock Purdy is not the reason that the 49ers win games. I get it. He had the highest passer rating in the NFL in terms of, just overall passer rating, accuracy, just precision with the football and not turning the football over. Yes, he is probably one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. I am not denying that. But if you look at the 49ers roster and the way it's built, it is built for success for anybody who steps foot behind center. You can win games with Nick Mullins like a couple years ago. Now, the roster wasn't quite as good as it is now, but we saw Nick Mullins can make throws and have brief success behind the 49ers roster. Jimmy Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and nearly beat him. Same way that Brock Purdy did last year. But at the same time, you need special at quarterback to overcome certain obstacles. You can't just keep hoping and praying that the rest of your team shows up and you just play average. Now, Brock Purdy did a great job against the Lions in the playoffs. I'll give him credit for that. but then never really should have got to that point because I don't even think they should have beat the Green Bay Packers. I full-heartedly believe that, Green Bay should have won that game. And the same thing goes for Detroit against the 49ers. That running the damn ball and going for it on those fourth downs. Dan Campbell, he's an aggressive coach. I get it. But either way, Brock Purdy is not the sole reason for the 49ers' success. It is the roster around him. It's built from the ground up to literally manhandle any other team that's thrown their way. It is built to compete with the elite in the NFL. Brock Purdy is not a quarterback that can go toe-to-toe, in my opinion, with a Patrick Mahomes, with guys like Justin Herbert, with guys like Lamar Jackson, with guys like Josh Allen. I full-heartedly believe that it's the roster around him that allows Brock Purdy to basically look like an elite top 10 quarterback in the NFL. If you put Brock Purdy on, let's say, the Atlanta Falcons or the New York Giants, do you think he would have nearly the amount of success that he's having in San Francisco? I can tell you right now, the answer is a big fat no. You stick Brock Purdy on the Giants, the Jets, they're still bottom of the barrel. And Brock Purdy, yeah, maybe he has glimmers of hope, glimmers of, great quarterback play. But at the same time, he's not special enough to overcome an organization. Guys like Patrick Mahomes, guys like Peyton Manning, guys like Tom Brady, all those guys can overcome chaos. If you have a quarterback that can overcome chaos and still produce at a high level, you're just a couple moves away in the offseason, in the draft, from making a deep Super Bowl run. Or even possibly winning the Super Bowl. So Brock Purdy, in my opinion, he's not a bad quarterback. I am not saying he's Gardner Minshew. I am not saying he's Will Levis. But I am not going to admit the fact that he's a top 10 quarterback. He's closer to 15 than he is to 10. And in my opinion, he's, a little bit worse than 15. I think he's 16. Smack dab right in the middle of the league. He's an okay quarterback, but I don't see special. Patrick Mahomes is special. Lamar Jackson shows special. Josh Allen shows special. Joe Burrow shows special. All those guys have a special quality to them where they can elevate others around them. In my opinion, the 49ers are the ones raising Brock Purdy. If it's the other way around, then you have a special quarterback. If the quarterback is not the one uplifting the team, if it's the team uplifting the quarterback, there lies the issue. So that was a little bit of a tangent, a little bit of a rant. I'll defend my takes. I will. And I'll admit, frankly, when I'm wrong. I will. If I ever was. Which I am. Quite often sometimes. But coming up in this NFL season, I'm going to be doing weekly videos about my picks, this current state of NFL teams, all of it. NFL is going to be a great, great year this year. And I look forward to it. And we're going to transition into some more NFL news. And depending on how you feel about Mike Tomlin, you either love him or you hate him. And if you're a Steeler fan, 9 times out of 10, you love him. And 1 time out of 10, you can't stand him. So I'm going to be playing the devil's advocate a little bit for this. So Mike Tomlin recently got a contract extension through the 2027 season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, do I think this was the right move? No. Me personally, I feel like there's a way for Pittsburgh to do better. I personally would have liked to see eventually, maybe not this upcoming year, but eventually see like the offensive coordinator for the Lions or a guy like Eric Bieniemy, an offensive-minded coach leading the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh reminds me a lot about Chicago, so rooted in tradition, so rooted into their defensive culture, but that's not what wins Super Bowls anymore. The days of the Steel Curtain and the 85 Bears, those defensive-led teams that stomped everybody to win Super Bowls, those days are long gone. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's I think he's a fantastic coach. I really do. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl champion, a two-time AFC Championship champion. But for the past couple years, basically the past 10 years, Pittsburgh has been notorious for underachieving in any and all games, in any and all big spotlight games. There is no reason under Mike Tomlin, when we had that defense that was stellar from the years of 2008 to 2013, there's no reason Pittsburgh shouldn't have won at least 2 more Super Bowls after the one they beat Arizona in Super Bowl 43. All intents and purposes, they should have beat Green Bay in Super Bowl 45, but it wasn't meant to be. But Mike Tomlin is not a bad coach. There's a reason he has never had a losing season. Now, that's an argument that I've heard enough about. It's like, I get it. It's impressive. 16 years in the NFL and not a single losing season. That's very impressive. It really is. So Mike Tomlin, I'm not going to doubt that he's a Hall of Famer. He's going to get into the Hall of Fame. He'll make a crap ton of money doing commentating for games or on pregame shows eventually when he decides to hang up, the cleats and everything for the Steelers. But I don't necessarily think it was the best move, but it definitely isn't the worst move. If you got rid of Mike Tomlin and hired, let's say, Arthur Smith, now I know he's the offensive coordinator, but that's what Arthur Smith is, a coordinator. It's like Nathaniel Hackett going to the Denver Broncos as a head coach. He's in over his head. He's out of his own league at that point, so it doesn't matter what he does. Can Arthur Smith possibly do good things for Pittsburgh's offense? I think it's possible. Is it likely? I don't know. This is the same guy that had Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. Now, albeit they didn't really have any quarterback situation to speak of because they were that putrid at the quarterback position. But when it comes to actual situation time in games, and you don't even have Bijan Robinson on the field, you don't even give Kyle Pitts more than 7 targets basically a season, there's no reason Bijan Robinson shouldn't be a top back in this league. There's no reason Drake London shouldn't have been one of the upcoming star receivers in the league. There's no reason Kyle Pitts shouldn't be talked about as on the level of George Kittle and Travis Kelce. That's how good these guys are, and Arthur Smith basically wasted their entire talent. So I wasn't a big fan of Mike Tomlin making that hire, but anything is better than what Pittsburgh had. And with Matt Canada, Pittsburgh's in a weird spot. Mike Tomlin's a good coach, yes. But how many times have we seen Mike Tomlin, when it comes to play clock management, when it comes to scheming, when it comes to player personnel decisions, when it comes to staffing for the Steelers organization, where do we draw the line? We can't even criticize Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh without getting our ears chewed off. But you have to be realistic when it comes to Mike Tomlin. Is he a good coach? Yes. But the NFL has pivoted to an offensive league over the past couple years, and Pittsburgh has not had a top offense since Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell were all there in their primes. And there's no reason Mike Tomlin, with those guys in their primes, couldn't have won at least 1 or 2 more Super Bowls. I think that's the biggest failure of the NFL in the past 10 to 15 years, is the fact that you had the killer bees. You had arguably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL in his prime, Ben Roethlisberger. You had the best receiver in the NFL, Antonio Brown, and you had the best running back in the league at the time in Le'Veon Bell, and a top 5 offensive line. Even with defense that, wasn't necessarily the Steelers' strength, there's no reason Pittsburgh, their past 3 playoff victories against quarterbacks, the past 3 quarterbacks that Pittsburgh has beat in the playoffs, Matt Moore for the Dolphins, Alex Smith for the Kansas City Chiefs, but they didn't even score a touchdown in that game. They beat the Chiefs with 6 field goals. And the latest one previous to those 2 was A.J. McCarron for the Bengals. It wasn't even a healthy Andy Dalton. Now, I don't think Andy Dalton is much, but he was definitely better than A.J. McCarron. So when is it time to start being critical of Mike Tomlin? I love Mike Tomlin. I'm a Steeler diehard. I'll acknowledge Mike Tomlin's greatness for what he's done. It's hard to win in this NFL league. It's hard to stay so consistent year in and year out. And Tomlin has been dealt some crappy hands when it comes to injuries that happened to Ben Roethlisberger years ago, towards the back end of his career. And Mike Tomlin still was able to coach his way to a 500 or more record. That's still impressive. But the standard in Pittsburgh has to be Super Bowls, not just winning seasons. You get what I mean? Where do we draw the line? Like, when do we say enough is enough, like there's time for a change? But also, if you're going to make a change, you better swing for the fences. You better hit a home run. You better knock it out of the park when it comes to another head coach that you may have in mind after the 2027 extension is over. So if you look at Pittsburgh's schedule this year, it's easily the toughest schedule in football. Towards the back end, at least, it's brutal towards the back end. The second it hits November, shit hits the fan. Sorry for cursing, but shit is going to hit the fan for Pittsburgh if they don't get their asses in gear early on. So they open up September 8th with at Atlanta, then at Denver, home against the Chargers, then at the Colts. Atlanta's going to be better. Denver may be better. The Chargers will definitely be better. And you got a healthy Anthony Richardson coming back from injury in Indianapolis, which isn't an easy place to play. Then you got the Dallas Cowboys at home. Now, they've always been feisty. No matter how much I love to smack talk Dak Prescott, the Cowboys are still viable just because, their roster's decent, at least on the defensive side. Then you got the Raiders. Then you got the Jets. Then you got the Giants. So Pittsburgh, through the first 8 games, you can realistically see maybe 4-4, 5-3, maybe at best 6-2. Then you get bye week in week 9. But weeks 10 through 18 are an absolute gauntlet for Pittsburgh. You got at the Washington Commanders, who do have a good defense. Now, Jaden Daniels may actually be turning out to be an elite quarterback or a rising star quarterback by this point in the NFL season, so we'll see, even though he is a rookie. So you go to Washington on November 10th, my birthday. Fantastic. Then you're home against Baltimore, at Cleveland, at Cincinnati, home against Cleveland, at Philly, at Baltimore, Christmas Day against Kansas City at home, and then you finish off the season with Cincinnati. Pittsburgh's in for a gauntlet from November 10th onward. It's a gauntlet to get to the playoffs. Do I think Pittsburgh can do it? Yes. But how likely is it that this might be Tomlin's first losing season as a Pittsburgh Steeler head coach? I think it's pretty likely. It could happen. If the offense is not producing the way it's basically marketed it's going to this year, Pittsburgh might be in for a long year, and people at the end of the year are going to be criticizing the entire organization for not stepping in and actually making the right decision to let Mike Tomlin go. Now, I'm playing devil's advocate because personally, I'm okay with the signing for Tomlin to get extended. I want to see how this year pans out when it comes to how Arthur Smith handles the offense and how Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields look behind center instead of what Pittsburgh had in Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and, the other carousel of quarterbacks that have come and gone. But for all intents and purposes, this could be the toughest season Mike Tomlin has had in a very long time with the roster that it's currently stacked to be. We'll see soon enough, but I'm just saying, while Mike Tomlin is a great coach, he has a Super Bowl under his belt, he's a 2-time AFC champion, and he's never had a losing season, but the amount of underachieving he's done since that Super Bowl loss to Green Bay is insurmountable and nearly unforgivable in some circumstances. When it comes to playoff losses that have happened over the past couple of years, This is put up or shut up time for Mike Tomlin. He has to prove something else. He has to prove that this team can be led by a defensive head coach with a good feel for offense, which Mike Tomlin hasn't proven. If we're being totally honest, Mike Tomlin hasn't proven that he has a good feel for the offense. This is a sport that has fired Andy Reid, a coach that has gotten to multiple NFC Championship games with subpar quarterback play. Donovan McNabb was not elite. Don't give me that. He was good. Like a Brock Purdy, he was pretty good, but wasn't special. He made a Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid did. But Andy Reid started winning Super Bowls when he had Patrick Mahomes. But Andy Reid is also the best play caller in the NFL, the best offensive mind in football, right up there with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. So this is a sport that fired Andy Reid and fired Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick hasn't even gotten a damn phone call to coach another team. So this could be put up or shut up year for Mike Tomlin. How is Pittsburgh going to stack up? I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. Mike Tomlin, this is put up or shut up time. If we're being truthfully honest, he's 173-100 in his career right now. Like I said, he's a Super Bowl champion and two-time AFC champion, but over 16 years, there's a lot of underachieving. And Pittsburgh fans have expected more, but underachieving has been Pittsburgh's forte for the better part of 15 years. All right, we're going to talk about a dangerous precedent that has been set in the NFL. When it comes to paying quarterbacks, I'm a big advocate for paying your quarterback. If he's an elite level quarterback, pay him and keep him, because at least you'll be Super Bowl viable for the foreseeable future. So the Jacksonville Jaguars just signed Trevor Lawrence to a 5-year contract extension worth $275 million, making him the highest matched with the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, Joe Burrow. Both of them hitting the $55 million mark. Do I think Trevor Lawrence is good? Yes. Do I think he's $55 million a year good? Absolutely not. There's only one quarterback in the NFL that really is worth that kind of money, and it's Patrick Mahomes. Not Josh Allen. As much as I love him, not Joe Burrow. As much as I love him, not Lamar Jackson. Those guys haven't proven they can win Super Bowls. But Patrick Mahomes has. Patrick Mahomes is going to rival Brady one day when it comes to accolades and Super Bowl trophies and Super Bowl rings. Mahomes is the ultimate warrior going up against Tom Brady. We'll see how it pans out. I think this is a dangerous precedent that Jacksonville is setting, because now, what do you do if you're the Dallas Cowboys? Trevor Lawrence has been in the league 3 years. He's 1-1 in the playoffs. If you're in the Dallas Cowboys shoes, you're shaking. If you're in Dallas's state of mind, you're shaking in your boots, because Trevor Lawrence has one career playoff win in 3 years. Dak Prescott wants that kind of contract. He has 2 playoff wins in the past 8 years. Dak Prescott only has 2 playoff wins in his 8-year NFL career so far. And Trevor Lawrence has 1 in 3 years. Now, the way Jacksonville's season went last year, it's not Trevor Lawrence's fault. They were off to a hot start at the beginning of the year, but injury after injury after injury, just derailed the Jacksonville Jaguars season. But I think giving Trevor Lawrence this kind of contract sets a dangerous precedent for other NFL quarterbacks who I may be on the cusp of being, great, but will always fall short. In my opinion, Trevor Lawrence, we were debating a long time who is better, who's going to be better in the NFL, Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people thought Trevor Lawrence is the second coming of Andrew Luck, but he hasn't shown that, really. It's now not entirely his fault. He had to deal with the Urban Meyer situation his rookie year. He had to deal with a rebuilding team the year after, and he had to battle through injuries this year. I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is not a good quarterback and not worth, a bigger contract extension, but to make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, that sets a dangerous precedent for any other NFL team that needs to sign a quarterback. And perhaps none more bigger than the Dallas Cowboys, who are probably shaking in their boots right now because if Trevor Lawrence is getting this kind of money, and I think Trevor Lawrence is better than Dak Prescott, but they're pretty close to the same level of quarterback. What do you do if you're the Dallas Cowboys? Do you give Dak Prescott $55 million a year? I can tell you right now, Dak Prescott doesn't deserve a fraction close to $55 million a year. Do I think he deserves an extension? Yeah, but more so in the range of Baker Mayfield, not in the range of the NFL's elite, because he's not elite. 2 playoff wins in 8 years, that speaks for itself. Dak Prescott is not elite. Neither is Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. But where do we draw the line when it comes to paying NFL quarterbacks, based off their worth? Trevor Lawrence has more potential, I would say, because his he's only been in the league 3 years. He's still got ample amount of time to grow and just mature as a quarterback. He's already shown flashes of greatness. But when it comes to Dak Prescott's situation, that's not a good precedent to set in the NFL when it comes to paying your quarterback. I don't think if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're a nervous wreck. Because if you pay Dak Prescott the range of money that Trevor Lawrence is getting now, your franchise is in for a world of trouble. You guys will not sniff a Super Bowl again for another 20 years. It's been forever since the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. I mean, Jacksonville never won one, but it's been damn near 30 years since, I think it's been 30 years since the Cowboys actually won a Super Bowl. So I think that alone sets a dangerous precedent. But I think it all sets a dangerous precedent into how much you pay your quarterback. Because like I said in previous episodes months ago, if you pay like a Patrick Mahomes all that money, well, you can't afford a Tyreek Hill. You can't afford all those good offensive linemen or all those defensive pieces. But it's shown that Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter if he has Tyreek Hill or a bunch of nobodies catching the ball at wide receiver. He'll still win Super Bowls. That's greatness. That's why I feel like you can pay Patrick Mahomes that kind of money, because he just makes anything work. But if you think about it, here are the top 10 paid quarterbacks in the league now. Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, the only 2 quarterbacks cusping the $55 million range. Then you got Jared Goff, $53 million. Justin Herbert, $52.5 million. Lamar Jackson, $52 million. Jalen Hurts, $51 million. Kyler Murray, $46. Deshaun Watson, $46. Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins in the $45 range. Kirk Cousins doesn't deserve that much. Deshaun Watson doesn't deserve to even be close to the top 10 paid NFL quarterbacks. He shouldn't even be in top 15 the way he's played over the past couple years. Not even close. Kyler Murray doesn't deserve that kind of money. Jalen Hurts, I would say, would, but he's, how good is Jalen Hurts really since Shane Steichen left for the Colts? Jalen Hurts regressed a little bit. He's still good. He's still great, in my opinion, but I don't think he's worth the $51 million price tag. Lamar Jackson, he basically revolutionized the quarterback position with the way he runs the football, but he chokes in the playoffs all the time. Justin Herbert, he's got to win more. Now, I know that the coaching staff with Brandon Staley didn't help much. I get all that. But at some point, you just have to overcome it and win games. That's what other guys did. Joe Burrow, in the year they went to the Super Bowl against the Rams, while they didn't win it, Joe Burrow had statistically one of the worst offensive lines in football history. But because Joe Burrow is so great, he was able to propel his team to the Super Bowl. And he damn near won that Super Bowl by himself, by sheer willing the Bengals on his shoulders and nearly beating the Rams. But the Rams were just stacked top to bottom with Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr. They were just stacked. Jared Goff, is he a $53 million quarterback? No, he isn't. He's not. He doesn't deserve the $50 million trademark. He got to a Super Bowl. He's doing great things in Detroit, and I still think he's the most underappreciated quarterback in the league. I think he's fantastic. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. But when it comes to paying quarterbacks this kind of money, what are the results on the field? Patrick Mahomes is the ninth highest paid quarterback in the league. He has 3 Super Bowls to his name. There's not a single other guy in the top 10 who has a Super Bowl. And Patrick Mahomes has 3. So it's important to establish the right precedent when paying these quarterbacks this kind of money. Is it because of their talent, or is it because of the results you get on the field? Mahomes has proven the talent aspect and the results on the field. That's why he gets this kind of money, and that's why he should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Joe Burrow has that potential if he stays healthy. But again, all these guys, all the rest of the guys in the top 10 of highest paid NFL quarterbacks, they don't have any Super Bowls. The only one is Patrick Mahomes. So eventually, I feel like we all have to take a step back and realize how much are we actually supposed to pay these NFL quarterbacks. I'm not against anybody getting their money. I'm not against that whatsoever. But the fact of the matter is, where do you draw the line? Is it the talent or is it the results on the field? Patrick Mahomes exemplifies both for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not one other quarterback on this list can produce a Super Bowl right now. And maybe that could change. Maybe. We'll see in the future. But I don't think it's going to happen. There's a reason Patrick Mahomes is the gold standard of the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks. He's the best. And might be the best that there ever was to play the quarterback position. Later down the line, he may usurp Brady. All right, we're going to move on to our final topic. And not really a topic, but I'm going to make my first predictions for the 12-team playoff in college football coming up this season. So as we all know, the college football playoff expanded from 4 teams now to 12. So I'm going to give you, in order, the rankings that these teams make and who I think is going to be in the final 12 competing for the national championship. Now, I was a big fan of college football expanding the playoff. No matter who you talk to, no matter how many teams there are, there's always going to be teams that feel like they got jobbed. Florida State, we all know that you felt like you got jobbed, but then you lose by 60 to Georgia in the Orange Bowl. So how good were you really? Even with all your players, if they all played, you probably still get smashed by 30 to Georgia. So in ranking them 1 through 12, the number 1 seed I think is going to the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think they're going to have a great year. Jalen Milroe back at quarterback. He proved at the end of the year last year that he will be a star quarterback in college football. You know, he's young. He was raw. You know, Michigan was just a better team. That's why they beat them in the Rose Bowl. But I think Bama has a big-time bounce-back year. Kalen DeBoer, first-time head coach in Alabama. You know, first season at Bama since Nick Saban retired. Now, a lot of people thought Nick Saban leaving, you know, Bama would take a couple steps back. I don't think so. I think Bama is still stacked. They're still ready to go. I'll take Jalen Milroe and the Alabama Crimson Tide to get the first seed. And I think they win the SEC in the process. Number 2, the Ohio State Buckeyes. As much as I have dogged the Buckeyes and Ryan Day, the schedule matches up for them. Their talented roster goes up against anybody in the Big Ten, and they beat everybody in the Big Ten. So I think they win the Big Ten, and based off polling and ranking positions, I think Ohio State gets the 2nd seed. Georgia gets the 3rd seed. I think Georgia and Bama, those two are always going to be duking it out for the SEC. I think Bama usurps Georgia this year. Now, I'm not saying Georgia is terrible, but I think they get the 3rd seed. Number 4, Texas. The Longhorns, led by Quinn Ewers, I think they get the 4th seed. Oregon at number 5. I think the Ducks will still be very viable. I know Bo Nix is not there anymore. He's with the Denver Broncos now, but I still think Oregon is so well coached and so well run. I think they'll be fine, and I think they'll propel themselves to one of the 12 spots. Number 6, University of Miami. I may be biased, but the schedule lines up for them. The roster lines up for them. I think this is the year Miami finally gets over the hump and makes the college football playoff. Now, in the previous system, they would have been one of the first two out. Now, I think they clinch the 6th seed, and I think they do win the ACC this year. Followed behind them, Florida State. As much as I love the dog Florida State, they still always have talent. They're never not viable in the ACC and on the national level, really. So I think Miami and Florida State, same thing with Georgia and Alabama, how those two are going to duke it out for the SEC. I think Miami and Florida State duke it out for the ACC. I think Miami finally gets back in the national spotlight at the 6th seed, but I also think Florida State, they're still going to be very viable with DJ Ungalale at quarterback, the transfer from Oregon State, former transfer from Clemson. I think they propel themselves to the 7th seed. Number 8, Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel. Oklahoma has always been viable, and they're still viable. No matter what, Oklahoma is always viable. So I think they clinch. Penn State. Another Big Ten team that is always viable. I think with Michigan taking a step back, the departure of John Harbaugh, the departure of so many starters on the Michigan team from the national championship team a year ago, I don't necessarily think that Michigan can handle with the rest of the Big Ten this year. I do think Penn State is built for this. Do I think they'll beat the Buckeyes in the regular season? Maybe. If it's a whiteout game, maybe. But Penn State is always viable in the Big Ten, so I think they clinch the number 9 seed. Baylor, another team clinching the 10 seed. They're always viable. They're always, feisty. They always have a good offense. I think Baylor, because when you get to the bottom, 9 through 12, you can make an argument for literally any team, hovering around the top 15 teams in college football. So the last 3 are kind of like long shots, but right now I'll choose Baylor. Number 11, I'll pick the USC Trojans. They're still going to be viable. Lincoln Riley's not going anywhere. He's still one of the best college football coaches out there. Probably one of the top 3 coaches in all of college football, if we're being honest. But, the lack of talent on the defensive and offensive side that went to the NFL, especially Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy winner, went first overall to the Bears. So USC takes a step back, but I still think it's enough to clinch the 11 seed. And out of pocket, the 12th seed, I'll put my faith in Colorado. I'll get back on the Deion Sanders hype train. I think he will right the ship a little bit with his son, Shedeur Sanders. And I think Shedeur Sanders is going to have a Heisman-like kind of year. I think Colorado clinches a playoff berth in this year's college football 12-team playoff. Albeit the 12 seed, you got to start in one direction and just keep going there. You got to build baby steps. Can't just ask for it all at once if you're Colorado and Deion Sanders. So, with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, a better offensive line, more skill guys to add on the defense and offensive sides, I think Colorado pushes their way to the 12th seed, clinching the final spot in the college football playoff. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. Thank you again so much for 160 subscribers. We're only continuing to grow, and I look forward to next week's episode. Be sure to stay tuned for that, but be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below again. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working